Jason. No, no, no. Oh, yeah. Sorry, this one's for Michael. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Bob Campbell, and I'd like to welcome you all today to celebrate and farewell the life of Jeanette, a wonderful lady who's touched many hearts. Can you hear all right at the back there?
Everyone be quiet, please.
Anyway, before I start, I wonder if you mind just checking if your cell phones are switched off. That's always terribly embarrassing when it suddenly bursts into life in mid-service. The order of events is quite simple. We're going to shortly hear addresses from several family members. The family will then take Jeanette to the Waiheke Cemetery. You're welcome to stay here to enjoy a glass of wine and no doubt share a few stories. There will be an opportunity for those who want to speak when the family returns. So just keep that in mind. Now, I'm Bob Campbell. Kim asked me to act as MC when doctors advised him that Jeanette had just 48 hours to live. But that was 2 years ago. The medicos don't always get it right, especially when they're dealing with a very strong-headed lady. My thanks to Kim for his regular reports over the past 2 years to friend and family. It's been an emotional roller coaster involving concern, sorrow, hope, elation, fear, and relief. We're in the winery that Jeanette and Kim built in 2001 after planting Waiheke's first vineyard in 1978. They were undeterred by the critics who said that salt spray from the sea would kill the vines. The critics were proved wrong. I first met Jeanette and Kim here in the early 80s and recall being totally enchanted by the warmth of their hospitality and Jeanette's amazing cooking, I have to say. They were risk takers who did it their way rather than follow convention. The quality of their wines and their apparently idyllic lifestyle attracted many others to follow in their footsteps. Waiheke now has a very thriving wine industry. What was less apparent to the casual visitor was the enormous amount of work involved. They are certainly not afraid of hard work. We joined them and their extended family for a week in Tuscany to celebrate their 80th birthdays. It was an incredibly stylish party. Jeanette was positively radiant for the entire stay. It wasn't just the Tuscan countryside or the good food of the wine that made her happy. It was being surrounded by people she loved and who loved her in return. The Tuscan trip was an inspiration that typifies the just do it attitude of Jeanette and Kim. It typified it throughout their married life. Jeanette was one of the kindest, warmest, calmest persons I've ever met. I feel privileged to have known you. I'd now like to acknowledge the only Goldwater family member who could not be here. Karen Goldwater's husband, Nick, is working in Australia and he can't be here today, but he's zooming in. Wherever the camera, hi Nick. We have got this Zoom business going and there is an access a code in the booklet when you may have picked it up when you came in. If you have trouble seeing or hearing me, you can always privately zoom into your cell phone. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it does. While I'm on that too, there's also a recording afterwards that if you know of anyone who's missed the service and wants to see it, they can log on and watch a recording. Another person who is also stuck in Australia, and actually in Melbourne, was Jonathan Priest, a lifelong friend of Jeanette's. She calls him his soul brother. Sorry? Or Perth, sorry, not Perth's much safer than Melbourne. Sorry, I got that wrong. Jonathan has written a touching account of Jeanette's early years, which I'm delighted to be able to read. She is a shining star, bright even among the backdrop of a myriad of twinkling points of hope and inspiration set in the dark night sky. Now that she's leaving us, we might ask, how did she come to be Jeanette? Her earliest impressions would have been of the chaotic world of war and the madness of intolerant conflict. She was a refugee with her mother, Jean, while her father, Roy, was incarcerated as a prisoner of war of the Japanese, and as we know, incredibly survived. One can only imagine the rationalization she must have undertaken as a child to try and make sense of this mad adult world. The whole mess, like any war, defied logic, and it's probable that rather than retreat into fear and loathing, she chose an alternative vision and quietly laid the foundations of her own more rational values. The war ended with a bang. The family were reunited, and after a period of recovery, Roy and Jean also went back to Malaya with her young brother Mark, while sending Jeanette to boarding school in Christchurch in the classical colonial manner, and tried to rebuild their shattered lives in a country they considered to be their chosen place. Of course, it didn't really work. The broken pieces did not fit seamlessly back together. There was more conflict, the emergency, more barbed wire and guns. Separation from your family during your most intense and formative years, children had to find their own way, observing and adapting, learning, and from the standpoint of that age, the most obvious lesson was that in a war there are no winners. Jeanette had several advantages as an independent, mature, and clever person. She was very attractive, and that was the first impression anyone would have of her. She was very gracious by nature, but her greatest strength was that she set and kindled an internal fire that immediately warmed anyone who met her. Somehow she learned and demonstrated that no person is your enemy. Everyone has good in them and can be your friend. She also has an amazing role model in her father, who could justifiably have been bitter and angry, but chose to carry no malice or hatred and lived every day with delight at the freedom, the air, and the surroundings, and the wonder of small things that most of us regard as ordinary. But he found extraordinary, and he shared those observations with everyone he met. He emanated goodness and kindness. There was a large part of Roy in Jeanette. As a young, vivacious occupational therapist, she immediately caught the eye of Kim, and of course he was dazzled by her inner light. It must have been the toast of his mates, having secured the affections of the best-looking girl in town. They married. The rest is a 61-year love story. Karen joined us on planet Earth. The family moved to England and lived for a while in my mother's house in Richmond, where Gretchen was born. And I was with them there from time to time and sharpened my debating skills with Kim. Jeanette called serenely on, Jeanette sailed serenely on, carefully arranging small branches of tree with buds in a jar on the dining table for us all to observe and wonder at this gift of nature, freely given and a part of the wonder of life, making sense. The small and beautiful things we must not overlook. That was an artistic and philosophical skill which she shared all her adult life. They moved on to Spain when Michael was born. Most people attack life with swords and spears and hide behind shields of their own ignorance. Jeanette approached the world with two pieces of equipment, gentleness and kindness, against which, of course, there's no defense. For Kim, one can only stand in awe of your commitment, love, and resilience during the last very testing time for you both. What a fantastic campaign, how well and tenderly done, and no wonder that Jeanette was so reluctant to make her last farewell to her lifelong soulmate and their wonderful family. It has been a beautiful, touching coda to an incredible life together. We can be sad, but we can also be joyful that we have all been witness to this beautiful love story. So for dear Kim and Jeanette, Nothing more to say, but we love you both dearly and admire your courage and calm philosophy. Hard to write through the tears, but there are many joys to remember. Thank you so much for letting us be part of your wonderful celebration in Italy. What a treasure to add to the string of life's gems. Go in peace, dear Jeanette, and give us a little twinkle from time to time from your place in the firmament. Such a lovely person. How wonderful to have such a sister in life. It was a life well lived. Jeanette must be one of the few on the planet who's universally loved by all who have known her. Go gentle into the night, bright light. Jonathan. I'd now like to welcome Jeanette's husband, Kim. I feel strange introducing Kim, everyone knows this, to the stage. Over to you, Kim.
Bit of a hard act to follow. Gee whiz. Seeing all these faces out in front of me, I'm sort of overcome with emotion. Thank you all so much for coming. This is my little tribute to Jeanette. Jeanette was my wife, partner, dearest lifelong friend. She died shortly after midnight on Saturday, 19th of July, 2020. Soon after her 84th birthday, and exactly 63 years to the day from when we first met. We met at an impromptu party in 1957. In those days, to get around the ridiculous 6 o'clock pub closing times, several of my Ardmore School of Engineering student colleagues ran a sly grog operation to supply beer to student and other parties all around Auckland. Each Friday afternoon, a 6-ton truckload of beer was delivered to the engineering school, where we stored the beer appropriately at the back of the fluid slab, ready for its illegal distribution. One cold and wet July evening, exactly 63 years ago, in response to a phone call requesting beer for a party at a house in Burwood Crescent, Remuera, we loaded my tiny rear-engined Renault car with crates of beer and 4 student colleagues and set off for the party. It turned out to be a rather dull affair, so I ended up sitting by the fire while I poured myself a lonely beer and contemplated a very short stay. Suddenly, from out of nowhere, a beautiful young woman appeared in the doorway. She stood there quietly surveying the scene, then glided serenely across the room, and to my astonishment, sat down beside me. Her name was Jeanette. We have been together ever since. I finally plucked up the courage to ask her to marry me. Surprisingly, she said no. I want adventure and travel around the world. I replied, well, that's exactly what I want to do. So let's do it together. So how could she refuse? She accepted my proposal and we were married not long after. So that's what we did. Soon after graduation in 1961, we set sail for England. with one beautiful baby in tow. We spent 5 years overseas, 3 working in London and 2 in Spain, while spending holidays travelling around Europe in our new Citroen Safari station wagon. We started the trip with Karen, born in Papakura, and ended with 2 more, Gretchen, conceived in New Zealand but born in London, and Michael, who was born in Madrid. Jeanette has been an absolutely wonderful mother to our 3 children and a special grandmother to our 8 talented grandchildren. Lucy, Ben and Sam, twins Millie and Moses, and Louis, Max and Mia. She has taught them many things, but perhaps the most important lesson she taught them was to be kind to other people for no particular reason. And that is what she told Karen when she had 2 days to live, almost a year and 3/4 ago. Phew. I've never met anyone with such dignity, grace and charm, strength of character and quiet determination. Despite this mild-mannered demeanour, she was a real force to be reckoned with, not only for me. She happily faced down a bunch of heavily armed Iranian militia guards who, with their submachine guns pointed directly at us and their fingers on the triggers, were preventing us from crossing the border from Afghanistan into Iran. When confronted with Jeanette's resolute courage and determination, the soldiers eventually caved in and let us cross. For Jeanette, no situation was too difficult, too dangerous, or too daunting. Jeanette wholeheartedly supported me through all of my many career changes: engineering, photography, silkscreen printing, boat building, property, and eventually our joint winemaking adventure. Every time I told her that I had changed jobs, she would quietly set about planting a large vegetable garden as insurance against her impending starvation. However, we did not starve, we thrived. We had an incredible life together, adventuring around the world, having 3 beautiful children and 8 amazing grandchildren, meeting many, many fascinating people from all the 4 corners of the earth, until we found our final home together in Matiatia Bay on Waiheke Island. Sadly, Jeanette finally succumbed to leukemia after a bravely fought battle lasting almost 2 years. That she survived until now, after being given only 48 hours to live on the 10th of October 2018, is a medical miracle and a testament to her immense determination, courage, and strength of will. This eventuality was not exactly what we had planned. It was supposed to be me that went first. Unsurprisingly, Jeanette could never trust me to look after myself properly, or to stop using the bedroom floor to hang up my clothes. During her devastating illness, she received blood from many extremely generous donors. These kept her alive for almost 2 years beyond that fatal October day. It is Jeanette's wish that as many of us as possible give blood or make a donation to the incredible team at the Motutapu ward at Auckland Hospital. Our marriage has been an extraordinarily fortunate and excitingly wild slave life, a fairy tale life. For some strange reason, we have been imbued with an incredible amount of luck. I call it our Red Sea syndrome. just when all seemed lost and there was no escape, the sea would suddenly recede and allow us to pass without even getting our feet wet. Jeanette was a woman of extraordinary love, skill and patience, a great psychologist, gardener, vintner, chef, thinker and lover. A woman with an ironclad determination. Nothing could stand her down or get in her way. Not even men, or a bunch of terrifying Iranian border guards wielding their Kalashnikovs at point-blank range. An extraordinary life, well lived. I will miss her immensely. I would finally like to say one thing, and that is I would like to thank my kids and their kids for bringing a celebration of Jeanette's life together with such dignity and love. Thank you so much.
Now I'd like to welcome to the stage Michael Goldwater, Jeanette and Kim's son, who will make an address. Michael.
Hello. I'll get the tissue at the ready. Firstly, I'd like to thank our incredible father. That's a good start. Kim has been a tower of strength and has looked after Mum with so much love and care and kindness. We all are so proud of him. This shouldn't take too long. Mum could not have had a better husband. I would also like to thank the world's greatest boat lover, Mr. Paul Tinney, who made Nettie's casket, which is just so beautiful and perfect. Okay, that's all the crying got. Sorry. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I am a music teacher. 25 years ago, I was teaching a very talented young woman by the name of Rhonda Simpson. Halfway through our lesson, Rhonda had to leave the room to check something with her mother, who was outside in the car. I could see through my window that something was going quite wrong between the two of them. They were obviously having some sort of disagreement. After some considerable minutes and quite vigorous quarrelling, Rhonda came back inside and with a very disgruntled look on her face and through gritted teeth said, "Never get a mother." As soon as she spoke those 4 possibly wise words, I thought to myself, that would be a great opening line. I might need someday. So today, I want to put to you that there is, surprisingly, a counter-argument to Rhonda's hypothesis. I am actually of the opinion it's not such a bad thing and at times can even be beneficial to, as Rhonda so eloquently put it, get a mother. Firstly, mothers can be love machines. And it goes without saying, our mother was the ultimate love machine. In her lifetime, she manufactured so much peace, love, and understanding that the endless torrent of emails, phone calls, and well-wishing just hadn't stopped pouring in. She made such a positive impact on so many people's lives. No matter who you were, no matter what you did, what you were like, our mother loved you. Mum's enthusiastic and overwhelming love of humanity was a shining light to all of us, but it did make outings last rather a long time, as Mum would always have to pay such close attention to the well-being of everyone we passed. Mothers can be good at making things. Our mother could make anything. She made the world's best gardens, made the world's best food, grew the world's best wine, and applied her hand to just about every craft with a palm. In the early years, she made all my clothes. It was only when I was 18, sitting in her tiny green daihatsu while she was measuring up my inner thigh outside Auckland University, that I finally plucked up enough courage to subtly point out that it probably wasn't that cool anymore to be wearing mother-made clothes. And it definitely wasn't the best way to impress the beautiful girls on campus either. Mothers can be supreme bringer-togetherers. Our mother had a subtle knack of bringing people and family together around the dining table, and more importantly, to achieve a desired goal altogether. Our mother would set our family Herculean tasks, such as moving piles and piles and piles and piles and piles of bricks many, many times over, to picking vineyards replete with juicy berries and gathering around her outrageously prolific olive trees to pick the plump fruit to turn into oil, all in the aid of bringing us together. Although, at times it did feel more like indentured servitude than quality family time, these beautiful traditions Mum created are now legendary and will continue for many generations. But most importantly of all, mothers can be bottlers. My mother spent her life making and bottling all sorts of unbelievably delicious pickles, preserves, and bottled tomatoes. For those of you who never had the opportunity to taste her delicious delectables, I pity your souls. So in summation, I would like to say to my dear old student, Roger Simpson, wherever you are, I think we can safely conclude that one should always get a mother, most especially if you have the very good fortune for your mother to be Jeanette Goldwater. Now, one thing my mother always did was pick up rubbish wherever she was and plant native trees. If you'd like to spread peace, love, and understanding and make the world a better place and honour the memory of our mother, all at the same time, pick up rubbish wherever you are and plant native trees. And finally, yes, I know I look like my father.
Now I'd like to welcome Karen Goldwater, Jeanette and Kim's daughter.
Hi, I'm Karen Goldwater. I'm not Jeanette's sister or Kim's sister. I'm actually the number one daughter. Hi, Nick. I'd like to read a poem by Sam Goldwater, who isn't here. Where is he? Steve. Jeanette, Jeanette, a woman of the land, but not just any land, this island. She is a gentle sea breeze pushing into Putiki Bay. She has wisdom to be looked up to, a Putakawa on top of a hill, and how she nurtures her children and their own walk among the vines and trees she planted. This island has been part of her for so long, and she is part of it. And now I'd like to welcome to the stage, and I have a great privilege and honour to present Nettie's favourite people, the grandchildren. Lucy Bullock, number one grandchild, and my daughter. Then Lucy Bullock, Ben Bullock, Sam Bullock, my children. Millie Goldwater, Moses Goldwater, Michael's children. Louis Christie, Max Christie, Mia Christie, Gretchen and Ken's children.
Wow, so good. Nettie was a collector of seeds, or simply a gardener, as she stated on her Christmas cards, and a collector of people. She carefully collected the seeds from the tastiest tomatoes from Kim's garden, meticulously placing each seed in perfectly aligned rows on a paper towel. The seeds would dry out, the paper towel would be stored for next year's seed drill. That is to say that Nettie found magic and wonder in the small things. And she planted and nurtured these in each of her grandchildren. The intricacies of a leaf, the magical colours of the clouds at sunset, placing food beautifully on a plate, a simple empanada on our Ruta 40 road trip through the Argentinian Andes timber. Her interactions with strangers, and rescuing a lemon fallen from the tree, and the simple joy she got from making him lunch. Nettie, I will carry these moments, these seeds of magic, wonder, kindness, and everything else that you have taught me throughout my life. These seeds that you've planted and nurtured continue to live on in us, your grandchildren, in the forests that you've grown, in the people that you've collected, and in my future children. And I will always think of you when I save my tomato seeds for the season.
To the woman whose family was her fortune, whose riches were us all, the people in her life, and the native trees in her garden, we thank you and we love you. Your aptitude for love and human kindness will be remembered by us all. Family to you knew no restrictions of a blood connection, but was simply anyone who showed up at your door. This island was your family. Nettie, it was always my dream that you would get to meet my children, and they met you. I'm worried because I know I won't be able to teach them to bottle tomatoes, harvest vegetables, fold sheets, or identify native plants like you can. I won't be able to subtly point them in the right direction with a, now darling, sometimes I find it works well if you do it like this. And I'll never have the calmness of your voice which offers such certainty and reassurance. However, thanks to you, Nettie, I know the real value of family and kindness. Without it succeeding, I'm sure, I promise I'll aspire to show my children the value of kindness, gratitude, and hospitality that was inherent in you. I hope that the family that you've created, our family, will continue for generations to come. Nettie, we are so proud of everything that you've been to all of your grandchildren and this world. What a privilege it is to be your granddaughter.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for coming today. My name is Moses. I'm Jeanette's 5th grandchild. I'd like to start with an apology of sorts. You see, ordinarily, my speeches are sorted for more jovial occasions, rather than the commemoration of a woman we loved so much. However, with death comes life and love. And that is how Nettie lived hers, a life filled with the love and admiration of family and friends and surrounded by life. Giving life to both a beautiful family and a beautiful legacy in the form of the plants and forests that surround us today. One of her favourite pastimes was to walk with us through the bush that she planted. These walks, although short in length, would often take a whole afternoon, as we would invariably get a quick 30-minute story about each and every tree. Who planted it, when they planted it, and any accompanying anecdotes. The only activity that would take longer than a bushwalk was a trip to the supermarket. We would pop down the road to grab a few things and somehow manage to run into almost everyone on the island. Now, darling, she would say, this is so-and-so, mother of so-and-so, explaining to us in great detail the intricate links and family ties which relate us, a pair of 5-year-old twins, to the unsuspecting shopper. These interactions would usually extend the length of the trip by around 10 minutes per shopper. To me, these stories best represent the type of woman Nettie was, and the lessons, values, and passions she imparted on us all. Nettie, I love you. I thank you for giving us all so much.
Hi everyone, I'm Louis. My siblings, Max and Mia, helped work with me today on what I'm now going to say, but they've let me stand up here and talk because apparently I'm the loudest. I didn't learn that from Ned, maybe instead from Kim. Nettie was kind and humble and caring. She was always willing to be generous and supportive. She would stop whatever she was doing to help us when we tear our clothes falling out of trees or down the hills here. She helped Max and I turn a fermenting concoction that we hoped would become ginger beer into something actually palatable. And she even forgave us when it exploded in her pantry. Nettie may have been quiet, but we always heard her. And it is a privilege that we can keep her voice with us. Thank you.
Now I'd like to welcome Gretchen Goldwater, Jeanette and Kim's daughter to the stage.
Quite something actually, when you just take my glasses off to see you all. Yeah, how do you feel now? Quite something. Jeanette, Nettie, Mum, or just Net, we knew by all these names. I think the worst thing about being the last speaker is that everyone steals your thunder before you get here. But anyway, so forgive me if I just reiterate a few points that everybody else has made. She created a world around herself of people and their stories, of the interconnection between them. And seeing all of you here is what we're talking about. Mum would have actually been sorry to miss you all. She would have loved to have greeted every one of you as you came in, as I did. I found that a really lovely experience. She would have wanted to say, you know, how's your child and their project that they were working on, and if some other minute detail that she would have actually genuinely cared about and remembered. She lived for people, she loved all the minute details about everybody's story, without discrimination or prejudice, and with generosity. You know, when we were kids, I think we would always very ungenerously say, you know, why do we always have to have waifs and strays at family occasions, you know? Can't we just have the family? And it turns out that a lot of those waifs and strays were actually our friends. She became a second mother to many of our friends as we grew up. All the Ponsonby school kids, just looking around the room, I can see some of them. The Hackshaws, the Cottons, Greta, Virginia, the Goldwater nieces and nephews up there, and wherever. She drove, when we were kids, she drove around, she had a little A30 yellow van, she had a thing for yellow vans. We used to call it the meat wagon, and everywhere you drove around Ponsonby, all the kids would just wave feverishly at you, and we kids would like shrink down, trying to hide, because it was a little bit embarrassing, but secretly we actually really loved that our mother was popular. If we were studying Spain at school, she'd invite the whole class home for a Spanish lunch. You know, she was there for us. In fact, as a woman of Ponsonby back in the day, she stood out as somebody different. And, not different, but special, I think, is what I mean to say. And we liked that. So we heard her story earlier from her soul brother, Jonathan. Jonathan's parents and her parents were friends in Malaya together. Her story is not the familiar story of a fifth generation New Zealander. She was very proud of being born in Malaya, as it was known then. But her life then was one quite different to the one she created here in New Zealand. Up here on the wall, you'll have to have a look later, is of her fifth birthday party in Malaya. I think it captures her life there very well. It's her fifth birthday and there are more servants than friends. Quite sadly. Anyway, it was not long after that birthday party that her father came home and warned her that the Japanese invasion was 20 miles away. See what to shoot? But she was lucky enough to escape with her mother and her younger brother Mark. But without the servants, much to her mother's chagrin. They eventually escaped by ship to Australia. Her father, as we know, was not so lucky. He was captured and eventually somehow survived the horrors of the Changi prison and the Burma Railway. While she seldom, I don't know if ever, talked about it to us, I'm sure it was their stories, their history, upon which she drew to survive these last 2 years. I know she was saying, if my father could survive Changi, she could survive leukemia. So after having lived the refugee life in the outback of Australia, she ended up at age 10, being put into boarding school at Rangaruru Girls in Christchurch, while her family returned to Malaya. I think it'd be fair to say she made the most of this time away from her mother. Turns out, some people shouldn't get a mother.
That was my line.
During this time, I think she decided, right, I'll just have to get a family of my own. So she decided to create one. She set about drawing everyone she met into her family web, and it was her lifelong mission to create this family, and here we all are. Very successfully, I'd say. She had an innate ability to relate to and actually be interested in people from all walks of life. It was as if once you met her, she downloaded your complete ancestry and worked out how you were interconnected and interrelated with everybody. It was one of her greatest joys to understand how we related, so therefore we are a family. She remembered everyone she met and how they interconnected with her family. Ironically, it wasn't until relatively recently, about 20 years ago, she discovered she did in fact have blood family. I'm looking around for Mark. Where are you? Oh, I'm looking at you now. Neither she nor we knew that Mariana and Mark were our family, and now we do, and we like that a lot. And Carmen too, who couldn't be here. We discovered Carmen more recently. Carmen, I hope you're watching and know that you are part of the family. She was delighted to meet you all, and she was so thrilled to be able to welcome you all into the family. I think she thought she'd struck gold when she met Kim. Not only was Kim adventurous, independent, able, shall we say handsome? In a Woody Allen sort of a way. More importantly, he came with his package deal. He came with a family. Kim's parents, most particularly his mother Rosie, welcomed Mum into their family and loved her like her own. They were a great team, Jeanette and Kim, Mum and Dad. Between the two of them, there were not many things that couldn't be accomplished. While she was very content to let Kim take the limelight, no one was under any illusion that it was actually she who enabled things to happen. But they set quite a high bar. They believed wholeheartedly in us, Karen, Michael and I, and me, I should say. That was one of the things we were never allowed to get wrong. Actually, I think she was actually too busy. They were actually too busy doing their stuff to really worry about what we were doing. As long as we were busy and doing it, that was the good thing. But in any event, if we ever wanted to do something, they were supportive of us. More recently, Mariana enjoyed her support too. I think you, Mariana, took her advice actually. Excuse me. When Mariana came into our lives, and she passed by some ideas to Mum, she said she wanted to go to university. And Mum said, just do it. Just don't be a lawyer. Go figure. Anyway, fortunately, you took her advice and launched a successful tech startup business. She was so proud of you, Mariana, so proud of you. So while Mum was definitely the quiet achiever, people learned very quickly never to underestimate her intelligence. She was always quick to put people straight on this. She hated being the older patient in the hospital because people started calling her dear and talking loudly to her slowly. Hated it. Apart from the lovely Filipino nurses that she absolutely loved and the Malaysian doctors. When she was given a bracelet that said independently mobile, which means she could walk, she wrote, no, I'd have preferred to be upwardly mobile. But she wasn't afraid of hard work either, nor getting her hands dirty. We had a lovely note from Jason. I don't know if you'll hear Jason. Jason, the digger driver. We've had so many laughs as a family. It's been really special. But when this text came in, I thought I might share it with you. He said, not many elderly women have said to me that they'd love to have a go on my digger. Actually, your mum was the only one. Now that's cool. And that really typifies Mum, you know, there wasn't anything. There wasn't anything she was afraid of doing. She wasn't even really afraid of dying, to be fair. It's quite extraordinary. And I think, strong and courageous. But perhaps it was her training as an occupational therapist, which not a lot of people know about. It developed her keen eye for detail. You could count on her to spot anything, the weeds you'd missed, the holes in your clothes, the thing you were actually trying to hide, or someone who needed a helping hand. But right to the end, things had to be done just so. Her way, the right way. Some might say she was controlling. Really, I think you do it like this or don't do it. Yeah. Some people do it like this. It's become a bit of a mantra in our house. And we all know that's, Nettie would do it this way, we must do it this way. We all do it. But we've actually grown to know the wisdom of her ways and appreciate them. So Mum's life really was distilled down to some very simple pleasures. People, garden, and kindness. And I think everyone who's spoken, we haven't compared our speeches, has said exactly the same thing. She gained immense pleasure from giving away produce from the garden. She would say, make sure you keep the garden producing food to feed people. So you've always got something to give people when they leave. And people who have come to the house recently will know you can't leave without bags of limes. But ever thrifty, she was a seed saver. With the seedlings she'd grown from seeds she collected on her way home from work in Auckland back in the 70s, she had us regenerating this valley behind us. I had a lovely moment when people were arriving. And Mark, I met your daughter, your youngest daughter, for the first time. Her name, this is really difficult. Her name is Cody. And it's such a beautiful name, Mark, because what I was going to say was that Mum grew the Cody tree, which I was going to invite everyone to look at out this window here, and you must be the first person to do this. And here she is. I thought it was people working in the winery. I was thinking, couldn't they stop? Anyway, so that was a beautiful moment for me, Mark.
And I invite you all to see above the canopy of the bush, which we all planted with mum's seeds, out this window over mum. And very briefly, the bottling. And I'm going to say it again. So from the bounty, from the garden came the bottling. She was a real bottler. She and the Ponsonby Road crew, Ponsonby School crew, were always bottling on the dining room table. And I am very pleased she taught me, and I will teach my children. But the thing that is so appropriate in this time, she was kind. Kindness was very important to her, and it was genuinely felt. She actually cared for others more than she cared for herself, right till the last moment. And as Kim said earlier, and I'm going to repeat it again, Kim, when her days were numbered, back in 2018, Karen asked her if she had any parting words, which she said so beautifully, "You barely speak." Kindness, she said. Be kind to people for no particular reason. I've been extremely proud of you, Kim. You've been amazing. But we couldn't have done it without the support of so many other people. The team at the Matatapu Ward who taught us how to look after Mum so we could bring her home where she wanted to be back in 2018. The people who brought her while we were in the hospital, the people who brought her Waiheke water. She wanted Waiheke water to drink in the hospital. And when we ran out, suddenly more would appear. Claire McClintock, hematologist. I don't know where you are, Claire, but you held our hands through the process, and that was very much appreciated. The Waiheke team, the wraparound medical care, Dr. Rebecca Potts, Katrina and the district nurses, Mags from hospice, and the whole community, and so many friends. And finally, all the people who made this farewell beautiful for Mum. Thank you all. There are actually too many people to thank. But know that we really do care and we really appreciate it. But Mum, she was never shy of straight talking. She would say, she'd come to visit and say, "Come on in." She said, "No, I'll just skip these weeks." She would say, "If you're not weeding, you're dead." So perhaps now, and to borrow from Lauren's words, where's Lauren? Lauren, borrow from your words. We all keep planting things and picking up rubbish. It will make Jeanette very happy. I'll leave it there.
I'd now like to invite Sam, Gretchen, Michael, Ben, Max, and Moses to come forward, please. We're coming to the end of this part of the celebration. The family will now take Jeanette out to the car. You're welcome to follow them. When the bell tolls, the car will go to the cemetery for a private burial. Everyone's welcome to stay here for a glass of wine or two, and there'll be an opportunity for those who want to speak when the family returns. Now, I wonder if you all mind standing.
Thank